Hey guys, welcome to another commentary done by Diggity. Upper left hand corner we have CPL King, aka Doodle, starting as the blue Protoss. Bottom left hand corner Artosis, starting as the red Terran. This is going to be on Citadel. I do want to note that many times on stream I've seen Doodle beat Artosis, and I know that there was at least a taunt in the space of that, encouraging Artosis. I don't know if he's, I know he's kind of doing it tongue-in-cheek, where he's like, you should join CPL, where you can get coaching and whatnot. But I have want to think that Doodle's actually trying to encourage Artosis to participate in the CPL community. And it's like, come on, Artosis, out there. So it's a bit of a troll, but I think it's also a legitimate bit of encouragement. And that being said, so there is kind of a, how do I put this? I think there's a phenomenon when you are really, really good at something where there is a gap where you can't teach people stuff anymore. It's kind of like scientists who've been doing stuff. This is actually, I think, a problem at universities where you have university professors who are being slated to try to teach like physics as though being good at something makes you good at teaching that thing, which is definitely a misnomer. And so I think there's oftentimes gaps, but they have the nice tier system in CPL. And you get coached by people up above, and I think just having a lot of people hanging around talking about something can open up ideas. And I honestly think that there is kind of a thing where if you can't explain a thing, you don't actually know it, or if you can't articulate it. I've heard a lot of StarCraft people do this thing where they're like, oh, he's doing this thing, but I can't really articulate why. And I think that's prior conversations I've talked about, the where you have unconscious information that you know is true, and you have conscious information that's not necessarily grounded. So it's like you have the unconscious grounded and the ungrounded conscious, both directions sometimes in anything like this. That's actually one wonderful thing about StarCraft. This is StarCraft. It's kind of is a area where you can actually ground it. But anyway, point being, I find sometimes in that space, if you have the time and the ability to sit and explain it to someone, then that means it opens up things for you and gives you new levels of understanding and new levels of appreciation and a lot of things like that. I like hanging around people that are talking about StarCraft that know what they're talking about, just to kind of get the osmosis and figure out where because I have lots of gaps because I don't have time to hang out in ladder and do a lot of things. I tried to do CPL briefly and then found out quickly that wasn't going to happen with my kiddo. Anyway, in the meantime, we're seeing some standard stuff. An initial Marine cancel here into factory, maybe because of the lack of scout from Doodle. Artosis playing this very safe, wants to go for probably 3 Marine into Vulture to start. Doodle skipping the initial Zealot, as he's often done versus Terran, and instead just going to go for initial Dragoons, which I think has paid off for him quite often. It gives him a little bit more opportunity to have. It's just kind of an ink bit of more. So the Zealot pressure early can really hurt racks into expansion, but that just isn't as popular as of late, and it sometimes can hurt counter pressure builds. But Artosis usually doesn't go for a counter pressure build unless he's seeing an early Nexus out on the field, especially a 12 Nexus, to try to abuse that. And this is actually kind of makes me think of the thing with Striker as well, where Artosis I think also suffers from the problem on occasion of build variance, which is if you do something kind of wild and crazy on occasion, like not all the time, but just on occasion, where your opponent thinks, oh, he might do this on occasion. I'm not sure why I wanted to say on occasion so many times there, but it opens up, and this is what I mean by that early Dragoon, getting some early damage on that SCV and frustrating these Marines, making them a little bit softer, and now once he can join up with the second Dragoon, should be able to defend additional action. Actually, Artosis is really pressing into this and going to group prepare on that Vulture towards the front, but still pocketing out. There is, oh, I like him holding the high ground, the low ground spoke right this second as well. And that's going to force Doodle to be a little bit more defensive, which is also going to allow that Vulture to get out on the map. And this is huge, honestly. I feel like this kind of gets underestimated in this build order, is that first Vulture getting out on the map to be able to plant mines is absolutely enormous. And if that initial Vulture gets stymied, not so great. Going back to the previous rant though, because this is going to be a rant commentary, I guess. When you have that little bit of extra range where you can do something again, where you're putting your opponent, it kind of opens up other build orders, if that makes any sense in my opinion, where they have to play a little bit more conservatively and not do a couple other things, because like, I don't know, because there might be a possibility that he might do this thing, at which point I would get punished for this other thing, if that makes any sense. And so anyway, kind of like a poker version of like hand range but in StarCraft. I know a lot of StarCraft players do quite well in poker as a side spread. I'm wondering how many of them think about it and thought about poker or StarCraft in exactly those terms. I'll stop talking about that right this second. Vulture still hanging out near that third. The Dragoon not pressing forward to really pressure it. It is going to be 2-gate robotics into Observer, by the way, here to start, which leads me to believe that we are going to see a maneuver of Dragoons being a little bit more aggressive out on the field here in the mid game. The mine is going to get planted at that third. I kind of like the 2-gate into Observer build post Nexus, just because it does allow a little, it plays well, I think, against the mid game Vulture in particular, because oftentimes what it allows you to do, if you're careful with your initial Observer, is it allows you to kind of get that stack of Dragoons, and oftentimes because you have all these early game shenanigans with these Vultures, you end up with a smaller siege tank count and much later siege. And oftentimes Protoss players can't, I've seen them quite often press forward and punish as a result. So once they have the 6 Dragoons out, once they have enough of them free to start moving on the map, and they don't have to, because of the front door wall, don't have to worry about this out in the field, then go ahead and grab their third. Even building that third, you can just move a little bit out there and not have to worry about it too much. It looks like, by the way, we've seen some Vultures making their way out to try to take out that probe. Looks like the Dragoon's going to go ahead and skate back on that probe, recognizing it and going ahead and hiding in the space of this. But anyway, point being, once you get a pile of Dragoons, you can start making your way to that, to the natural expansion, and sometimes pick off siege tanks before siege is even there, and then the single bunker isn't enough to stop the early Dragoon pressure. So, not always, but it happens. 12 o'clock base, by the way, 9 o'clock base covered by those mines. Barracks hovering to the north just to see if there was an incoming drop. Just 3 Vultures active. The Observer coming alongside. A flurry of comp sets there by Artosis to keep an eye on the tech. And this is going to be just 2. This is pretty greedy expanding here from, and I think it informed greedy expanding, but this is going to be a quick third base take with just off 2 gates. So didn't go up to 3 gates, didn't go for earlier pressure, and instead went for that third base, recognizing that Artosis really wasn't going to be in a place to kind of push against him, given this particular build order. In the meantime, as a pile of Dragoons out is starting to fan out, we have some mine coverage out to the right. This is kind of that moment I was talking about. Siege Tech just finished. We also have shuttle speed upgrading as well, and we do have that pile of Dragoons making the way forward. So my question is if this Observer moves forward, and this is interesting, Artosis is actually not fielding those siege tanks towards the natural expansion. So we got a handful of mines here, and this Observer able to sneak in and see that the 3 siege tanks waiting to the edge. We are moving up to 4 factories instead of, I'm looking to say with double machine shop. This has been pretty typical for Terran in response to the current meta, is to go up to it. We're kind of in like that transitionary phase, I want to say, where some players are experimenting with 4 to 6 factories, depending on how rapidly they want to get that third command center up, and going with a larger army, and then kind of testing into the Protoss attack and seeing if it's hittable. Looks like we also have +1 weapons upgrading in the space of this, by the way. And so going with a little bit of a heavier troop count to either maybe like optionally press in and maybe grab a base if the engagement goes well, or if there's just too few troops, but otherwise at least have a large enough attack force to go ahead and secure a third. The 4 base is kind of that lighter version of this, and it's closer, if I was going to put it on a scale of this towards upgrade Terran, it's like closer to the upgrade Terran. It's more relying on the upgrades in the space of all that. So Dragoons clearing mines to the front, a single siege tank being left with the bunker underneath, and I think Artosis was hoping he'd go for the dive there, and then he'd be able to siege underneath this and maybe get some additional damage. 9 o'clock's been open. This is just 3 bases. Opposite Protoss, they've been doing this, is getting up to 3 bases and then tacking on a lot of gateways and going for shuttles with Reavers to try to stymie timing attacks, usually checking around the 7-minute mark and 10:30 mark. Command center already being built here from Artosis, by the way. He's now going to attack on that 5th factory in the space of it. +1 weapons is going to, I don't expect him to make a move until +1 weapons is finished, though. And we have a handful of Dragoons near that front, but they're just, I think they're mostly there to spot things off. A single Vulture was able to stop that probe on the timing towards that 12 o'clock base. Well, and this is, again, this is less Doodle looking to get aggressive, more him wanting to stop a timing attack. It does have kind of the side benefit of slowing down these sort of plays here. And you can see the 6th factory. Actually, so Artosis is going 4 factory initially to fill in some supply, going up to 6 factory behind that command center, and then floating the units out. I kind of like that, actually, to theoretically have the command center float out and then immediately have the production to utilize it after the fact, getting that starport to make his way towards +2 weapons, his +1 weapons about to finish in the space of all this. Dragoon able to find that vulture out to the north. Still no additional movement, and the vulture actually might get a couple, yeah, able to get a probe kill or 2, which is nice. But in the meantime, yeah, just kind of, I think both players just kind of waiting for the inevitable move out. And this Reaver's particularly, this is where it gets frustrating, is the Reaver's staged like this towards the front can peel out a lot of the units, and you have to be very, very careful as a Terran player on approach. It's because the Dragoons can you take out that initial shot, the second shot comes, and exactly this, you end up losing siege tanks. And it just, the more this gets slowed down, the more time it takes to get that command center up, the more the Protoss ends up in a pretty good opportunity to grab additional bases. And it looks like he's already staging, feeling like, okay, that Reaver's already slowed things down, I'm gonna scoot right back out. I think he had the observer to go ahead and see that command center being built on the edge of vision potentially as well. Scarab damage just finished upgrading, by the way. And so Artosis is just trying to be as cautious as possible moving into this. But if he's overly cautious, if he's too slow, this is, again, a later command center, which means faster Protoss stuff down the line in his face. Gravimetric boosters also, I just want to comment that. Ooh, able to get 1 free Reaver, though, while Doodle was asleep at the wheel. A bunch of Zealots and an additional 2 shuttles with some shuttle bombs looking to move up to really contend this command center out on the front. And this is very bombable right here along this corner. The Zealots really can't storm, and I like this. So Reaver getting a shot off, not able to scoop up under there, but now Doodle gonna dive onto this, and the great play. Oh, it looks like some of the tanks unsieged in the space of that. And I don't know if this, well, no, it looks like it's going to work out after all, just because of the massive amount of bombs clearing out that middle area. So, and another command center was being attempted to be built in the space of that. So Doodle just macroing really well, getting a good engagement with the shuttles on top of it. And Artosis instead going to have to cancel. He was hoping to go for 2 quick command centers off the 6 factories, and instead he's going to be heavily delayed and have an army reset off the troop count he had. And we still have more Zealots to drop on top of that, losing control of his natural expansion on top of it, and that might be game, actually. So Doodle finding the timing and absolutely smattering that army with a really solid follow-up engagement. Zealot storming now into the 6 o'clock. He's going ahead and grabbing his 4th base at the 12 o'clock location, by the way. And I want to say that this observer right here is the culprit, is really the Doodle's had all the information as far as factory count and was able to adjust and create timings as a result. And you can't give a player of Doodle's caliber this much information for that long a period of time. He will know what to do. He will know how to adjust. He will know how to smash it. And I think that's what's happening in the space of this. Artosis GGing and giving the very mannered good luck. He's very mannered at tournaments. Good luck moving forward. But anyway, yeah, kudos to Artosis. I'm not sure how many replays I have left that didn't make it to the mainstream in the space of this. Regardless, hope you guys have enjoyed the coverage of this series up to this stage. Appreciate it. Thank you for listening.